Returning home now, we're taking you live to Victoria's State Control Centre. We're seeing an update being given here by authorities.
Back in 2009. We also saw 48.1 degrees in Mildura, and in Melbourne, the Laverton weather station set a new temperature record of 45.6 for that station. The heatwave warning remains current, with extreme heatwave conditions across the northeast and severe heatwave conditions across the Mallee, Wimmera, Northern Country, North Central, East Gippsland and West and South Gippsland. The extreme heat is focused over northeastern Victoria today, where temperatures are forecast to reach up to 45 degrees. We could see more records set today in that area. By the end of the week, many sites will be approaching records in terms of duration of days over 40 degrees. Saturday will be the last very hot day for northern Victoria, with temperatures forecast to reach 43 to 45 degrees in the towns along the Murray River. On Sunday, cooler air will extend across northern Victoria and we'll see temperatures drop by about 10 to 15 degrees, with temperatures generally reaching about 30 degrees in the north on Sunday. The severity of this heatwave is comparable to the heatwave in January 2009 and also the heatwave in January 1939. The data shows a long-term increase in heatwave frequency and intensity, particularly since the year 2000 due to climate change. On Friday and Saturday in Victoria, we'll also see an increase in cloud cover and moisture. We'll see some showers and thunderstorms, particularly over northern and eastern Victoria on Friday and Saturday, but unfortunately these won't bring significant rainfall totals. After a few cooler days, we're expecting temperatures to rise again during the middle of next week, although there's no expectation of temperatures reaching anywhere near like what we've seen over the last few days and continue to see through this week. I'll now hand back to the Commissioner. Thank you.
Thanks, David. As you've just heard, we're on the path to seeing 8 consecutive days where the north of our state will have seen temperatures above 40 and nighttime temperatures in the mid to high 20s. We know that that has impacts on human health, and Ambulance Victoria will speak about what that means for our communities and what people should continue to do, particularly in the north of our state in the coming days. We do know that the heat is also now starting to have impacts on infrastructure. Our transport is obviously running to extreme heat timetables, but yesterday we saw our power infrastructure start to see some of that heat stress. We saw isolated local outages being created by the likes of transformers and fuses that were tripping as a result of the heat that was being experienced, particularly across the metropolitan areas. And we saw over 105,000 properties that were impacted at the peak around 9:30 last night. The good news is our power companies have been working hard to restore that power, and most of that was restored overnight or earlier this morning, but there are still around 11,000 properties that are still to have power restored at this time. So it is a timely reminder, particularly for those in the north of the state while these conditions continue, to make sure that you are charging your devices so that you can maintain awareness of warnings and other public information, but also making sure that you're looking for those cooler places. Moving to the fires, yesterday we ended up with 8 major fires in our landscape, up from 2 being the Rocklands and the Lurralee fire that started yesterday. Fortunately, we're now back down to 6 major fires in the state. A state of disaster still remains in place at this time, and we can't emphasise enough that if you don't need to be in the areas where warnings are current, then you should not be in those areas when we have a state of disaster in play. We still have 1 emergency warning and 6 watch and act warnings that are current for our fires at the moment, and Chris Hardman will speak to some of the fires shortly. We also still have that extreme heat warning, which is a statewide warning, which includes that messaging about prepare for local power outages, and that's been in place for several days. There are still 3 fires that are not yet under control. That is the Walwa Mount Lawson fire in the northeast of the state, the Dargo Wonnangatta fire in Gippsland, and the Carlisle River fire in the Otways. Yesterday I mentioned we had 2 new fires in the landscape at Rocklands and also Lurralee in the west of the state. Fortunately, both of those fires are now contained and fire crews are working to bring those to being safe. Sadly, we did see some further losses at Laralee yesterday, where there were 2 structures lost and 10 properties where there are stock losses on farms in that area. At the Carlisle River fire, yesterday firefighters did an amazing job at holding that fire until it escaped containment lines around 5 p.m. What we now know is there are at least 16 structures that have been destroyed at Gellibrand, and impact assessment crews are still working through the area to identify if there are any further losses. We still have relief centres that are open for that fire at the Colac Showgrounds and also at the Colac Blue Water Reserve, and we would invite people to go there if they are evacuating from that area. The Grovedale Community Hub in Geelong has now been closed. There are 158 people that took refuge at our relief centres in Colac overnight last night, and Chris Hardman will speak to the balance of the fire shortly. Today I joined Chris Hardman from Forest Fire Management Victoria and Jason Heffernan from the CFA to welcome the Alberta and British Columbia Canadian firefighters into Victoria. They're now being briefed here in Melbourne today, and they will be deployed out to our firegrounds in the northeast and Gippsland over these coming days. Their support is very welcomed, as our firefighters have obviously had a very long high-risk weather season already. To date, we've had 1,300 interstate and international supporters coming and providing crews and incident management teams for our fires. We still have 22 New Zealand firefighters with us as well, and they will be replaced over this weekend by crews from New Zealand. I'll now pass over to Michael from Ambulance to take us through some of the heat messaging.
Thanks, Commissioner. As the Commissioner's alluded to, we are in day 5 of pretty hot conditions, with a prediction to go for a further and into 8 days of the campaign. I can't stress enough the importance of what heat and the impacts of heat does to especially those of our vulnerability in the community, elderly, frail, immunocompromised and children. And please check in on those people that you know are vulnerable, all your friends, family and colleagues. Staying hydrated is very important. Sips of fluid right throughout the day, shade, sunscreen, hat, all those things you would normally do through a SunSmart campaign are even more important right now. We know that the impacts of heat can cause heat stress, further heat stroke, and signs of heat stroke around loss of consciousness, confusion, seizures are life-threatening emergencies, and we encourage any of those symptoms that you please call 000. Over the long weekend, we saw 21 children locked in cars and a further 4 locked in cars yesterday. Whilst we know the majority of these incidences are accidental, the impacts are deadly. Temperature can rise at 20 to 30 degrees more in a car, double the temperature of outside. So please keep your keys close to you, be cognizant of those children in the car, also including pets. We did see an increase in workload yesterday, in particular those areas of Bowen South West region, Hume region and Loddon Mallee, anywhere between 12 to 16%. But be assured we were prepared as part of our planning response with additional paramedic personnel within those areas, providing coverage to the area, and will continue to do so through the campaign to keep Victoria safe. Thanks very much. I'll hand over to now Chris Hardman from Fire Management Victoria.
Thank you, Chris Hardman, Forest Fire Management Victoria. I'd like to provide a brief update on the fires and some of the impacts of the Carlisle River fire. Briefly, the Mount Lawson Walwa fire has had lots of hot, dry weather over the top of that, but firefighters have done an exceptional job in that fire still being held within its containment lines, and they will continue to work on that fires for the days ahead. Similarly, with the Dargo, Wonnangatta fire in high country in central Gippsland, that fire was very active yesterday, but firefighters managed to hold that fire within the containment lines that are already there. There's much work to do on that fire, and we'll certainly look forward to the Canadians supporting us in that work. But I do want to spend a little bit of time on the Carlisle River fire. That fire, and just before I do, I'd just like to thank the community for just absolutely getting behind the messages that emergency services was providing, particularly around the evacuation, and acknowledge 142 CFA volunteers standing shoulder to shoulder with SES volunteers standing shoulder to shoulder.
We'll continue to bring you the latest on those developments in Victoria.